Marcus Sterling sat in the corner booth of Ruby's diner, staring at his phone with tired eyes. The screen showed numbers that made his head hurt. Red numbers. Bad numbers. Numbers that meant billions of dollars had disappeared in just one day. He was 52 years old and owned a company worth $40 billion. People called him a genius. Magazines put his face on their covers. But right now, sitting in this small diner in a town nobody had heard of, Marcus felt like a complete failure. The diner was quiet. It was 3 p.m, that strange time when lunch was over but dinner had not started yet. Only 2 other people sat at the counter eating pie and talking softly. The walls were covered with old photographs and dusty decorations. Everything looked like it belonged to a different time. Marcus had driven here to escape, to hide, to think. Yesterday, he had stood in front of angry investors and tried to explain why his company's stock had crashed. They did not want to hear his explanations. They wanted their money back. They wanted answers. They wanted someone to blame. His coffee was cold. He had been sitting here for almost an hour, not really drinking it, just holding the cup like it could somehow protect him from the real world outside. The door to the kitchen swung open, and a waitress walked toward him. She looked to be in her late 20s with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore the standard diner uniform, a red shirt and black pants, and carried a coffee pot in one hand. "Need a refill?" she asked. Marcus looked up. Her name tag said Maya. She had a direct way of looking at him that made him uncomfortable. Not rude exactly. Just honest, like she could see right through all the expensive clothes and the luxury watch to the exhausted man underneath. "Sure," he said. Maya poured fresh coffee into his cup. The hot liquid steamed in the cool air of the diner. She did not smile the fake smile that most waitresses used. She did not ask if everything was okay or if he needed anything else. She just poured the coffee and started to walk away. "Wait," Marcus said suddenly. Maya turned back. "Yes?" Marcus did not know why he had stopped her. Maybe it was the loneliness. Maybe it was the desperate need to talk to someone who was not an investor or a lawyer or a board member. Maybe he was just going crazy. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. Maya looked at him carefully. "Should I?" Marcus Sterling. Sterling Tech, any of that ring a bell? A flicker of recognition crossed her face. "The guy whose company lost a bunch of money yesterday." "Yeah, I saw something about that on the news this morning." Marcus laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "That's me. The guy who lost billions of dollars in one day." "Well, you're still drinking coffee in a diner, so it can't be all bad," Maya said. There was something about the way she said it. No sympathy. No judgment. Just a simple fact. Marcus found himself relaxing slightly. "I have 53 advisors," he said, speaking more to himself than to her. "Financial experts. Business consultants. People with degrees from the best schools in the world. And you know what? Not one of them can tell me how to fix this mess." Maya shifted the coffee pot to her other hand. "Maybe that's your problem." "What do you mean?" "Too many advisors. Too many people telling you what they think you want to hear." Marcus stared at her. This waitress, this complete stranger in a small-town diner, had just said something that none of his expensive consultants had dared to say. "You seem smart," he said, and there was sarcasm in his voice now. The defensive sarcasm of a man who had been beaten down too many times in the past 24 hours. "Want to tell me how to save a $40 billion company?" He expected her to laugh, or to get flustered, or to apologize for overstepping. That's what normal people did when billionaires got sarcastic with them. But Maya did not do any of those things. She looked him straight in the eye, and for a long moment she did not say anything. Marcus could see her thinking, deciding whether to speak or stay silent. Finally, she said, "Stop trying to save it. Start remembering why you built it." Then she turned and walked away back toward the kitchen, leaving Marcus sitting alone with his fresh cup of coffee and his racing thoughts. He watched her go, completely stunned. Those 2 sentences kept echoing in his head. Stop trying to save it. Start remembering why you built it. When was the last time he had thought about why he built Sterling Tech? Really thought about it? Not the official story he told in interviews. Not the smooth narrative he presented to investors. But the real reason. The actual moment when he had decided to create something new. It had been 25 years ago. He was 27 years old, working at a tech company that treated its employees like machines. He remembered sitting in his tiny apartment, frustrated and angry, thinking there had to be a better way. A company that actually cared about the people who worked there. A product that actually solved real problems instead of creating new ones. That was why he had started Sterling Tech. Not to make billions of dollars. Not to impress investors. Not to see his face on magazine covers. He had started it because he believed in something. Because he wanted to build something meaningful. But somewhere along the way he had forgotten all of that. The company had grown bigger and bigger, and with each year, each merger, each new product launch, he had moved further and further away from that original purpose. Now Sterling Tech was just another giant corporation, chasing profits and stock prices like everyone else. Marcus looked down at his phone again. The red numbers were still there, but somehow they did not seem as important as they had 5 minutes ago. He glanced toward the kitchen door where Maya had disappeared. Who was this woman? How had a waitress in a small-town diner managed to say the one thing that his 53 advisors could not? The afternoon sun came through the window, making patterns on the worn table. Marcus took a sip of his fresh coffee. It was good coffee. Simple. Honest. Real. For the first time in months, maybe years, Marcus felt something shift inside him. It was not a solution. Not an answer. Just a small crack in the wall he had built around himself. A tiny opening that let in a little bit of light. He sat there for another hour thinking. Not about stock prices or investor demands or quarterly reports, but about why he had started his company in the first place. About the young man he used to be, full of ideas and passion and hope. When Maya came back to refill his coffee again, Marcus looked up at her with different eyes. "Can I ask you something?" he said. Maya paused. "I guess so. Why did you say that?" "About remembering why I built my company?" She set the coffee pot down on the table and crossed her arms. For a moment, Marcus thought she was going to walk away without answering, but then she spoke. Because people who forget why they started something always lose their way. Doesn't matter if it's a company or a marriage or a dream. If you don't remember the reason, everything else becomes meaningless. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Maybe I am. Marcus wanted to ask more questions. But the door to the diner opened and 2 new customers walked in. Maya picked up her coffee pot and went to greet them, professional and efficient. But Marcus kept watching her, this mysterious waitress who had somehow seen through him in a way that nobody else could. And he made a decision, a crazy decision, a decision that his board members and lawyers and advisors would absolutely hate. He was going to talk to her again. Really talk to her, because for the first time in a very long time, someone had told him the truth instead of what he wanted to hear. And that truth, uncomfortable as it was, felt more valuable than all the expensive advice he had been paying for. Marcus Sterling did not know it yet, but his life was about to change. And it would all start with a waitress named Maya, and a simple question asked in a quiet diner on a long afternoon. Marcus came back to Ruby's diner the next day, and the day after that. Each time he sat in the same corner booth, ordered coffee, and waited for Maya to serve him. On the 3rd day, she finally asked, "Why do you keep coming here?" Marcus looked up from his laptop. "The coffee is good." "The coffee is average," Maya said flatly. "You can get better coffee anywhere in the city." "So why are you really here?" He closed the laptop and leaned back in the booth. "I want to understand what you meant. About remembering why I built my company." Maya glanced around the diner. It was late afternoon again, and the place was mostly empty. Her boss was in the back office doing paperwork. The cook was preparing for the dinner rush. Nobody was paying attention to them. "I get off work in 20 minutes, she said. "If you're still here, we can talk." Marcus nodded. "I'll be here." 20 minutes felt like an hour. Marcus tried to work on his laptop, but he could not concentrate. His mind kept going back to Maya's words. "Stop trying to save it. Start remembering why you built it." Those simple sentences had been haunting him for 3 days. Finally, Maya emerged from the back room. She had changed out of her uniform and wore jeans and a simple blue sweater. She looked younger without the waitress outfit. More human. She slid into the booth across from him, holding a cup of tea. "Okay, you want to talk, so let's talk. But first I need to know something. Are you here because you actually want advice, or because you think it's funny to ask a waitress for help?" The question was direct and slightly aggressive. Marcus appreciated that. He was tired of people being careful around him. "I'm here because you said something true," he answered. And nobody else has told me the truth in a very long time. Maya studied his face as if trying to decide whether to believe him. Then she took a sip of her tea and began to speak. I used to be like you, she said. Not rich, not famous, but I had big dreams. I was studying business at college, top of my class, full scholarship. Everyone said I was going to do great things. Marcus listened carefully. This was not what he had expected. Then my mom got sick, Maya continued. Her voice stayed steady, but Marcus could hear the pain underneath. Cancer, stage 3. She's a single mom. She raised me by herself, worked 2 jobs to give me everything I needed, and when she got sick, the medical bills started coming. Huge bills. Bills that insurance didn't cover. So you dropped out of school, Marcus said quietly. I dropped out of school, Maya confirmed. Started working 3 jobs. Waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night, doing data entry on weekends. Whatever I could find that would pay. I'm sorry, that must have been incredibly difficult, Maya shrugged. It was what I had to do. But here's what I learned from those 3 years of working myself, half to death. I learned more about business than any college could have taught me. Marcus leaned forward. How? Because I saw how real people live, how they make decisions, how they spend their money. I served coffee to executives who spent more on lunch than my mom's monthly rent. I cleaned offices where companies wasted millions on things that didn't matter. I saw small business owners struggle to keep their stores open, not because they were stupid, but because nobody with power cared about them. She paused, looking out the window at the street outside, and I watched people. Watched how they talked to each other. Watched what made them happy and what made them stressed. You learn a lot about human nature when you're invisible, when you're just the waitress or the cleaner. People forget you're there and they show you who they really are. Marcus realized he was holding his breath. Everything Maya was saying resonated with something deep inside him. Something he had forgotten. So when you walked in here 3 days ago, Maya continued, I could tell immediately that you had forgotten something important. You had that look. The look of someone who has everything except the one thing that matters, one which is purpose, connection, meaning. Pick whichever word you like. But you've lost it. And losing it is killing you even if you don't realize it yet. Marcus sat back, absorbing her words. My company made $6 billion in profit last year. $6 billion. But the stock still crashed because investors wanted more. They always want more. How do I fight against that? You don't fight against it, Maya said simply. You stop playing their game, but they own the company. The shareholders. I answer to them. Do you? Maya challenged. Or do you answer to the reason you built the company in the first place? Marcus opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. He had no answer. Maya continued. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually talked to someone who uses your products? Not in a fancy focus group, not in a controlled environment, but a real person who bought your product with their own money? Marcus thought about it. He honestly could not remember. Maybe 5 years ago, 10. Everything was filtered through his marketing team now. That's the problem, Maya said, reading his expression. You're making decisions based on numbers on a screen. But numbers don't tell you why people choose your product. Numbers don't tell you what problems they're trying to solve. Numbers don't tell you what keeps them up at night. So what do? You remember? You go back to the beginning. Why did you start Sterling Tech? Marcus closed his eyes. The memory came back sharp and clear. I was working for a company that treated employees like they were disposable, like they didn't matter. I watched good people burn out, watched creative people get crushed by bureaucracy. And I thought there has to be a better way. So you built a better way? Yes, I built a company where people mattered, where innovation was encouraged, where we solved real problems instead of creating fake ones. And now, Maya asked, is that still what your company does? The question hit Marcus like a punch to the stomach, because he knew the answer. No. Sterling Tech was not that company anymore. Somewhere along the way, it had become exactly the type of company he had hated. Bureaucratic, focused on profits over people, more concerned with stock prices than actual innovation. No, he admitted quietly. It's not, Maya nodded. That's why your stock crashed. Not because of market forces or competition, but because people can feel it when a company loses its soul. Employees feel it first. They stop caring, stop trying. Then customers feel it. The products get worse. The service gets worse. Everything becomes just good enough instead of great. And then investors feel it and they panic. Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. Everything Maya was saying was true. He could see it now clear as day. His best employees had been leaving. Not for more money, just leaving. And he had blamed them, thought they were disloyal. But maybe they were just trying to escape from a company that no longer stood for anything. I have a board meeting next week, Marcus said. They want me to announce layoffs. Cut 20% of our workforce to make the numbers look better. Show investors that we're taking action. Will that solve your problem? Maya asked. No, it will just make the problem worse. But they'll never understand that. Then make them understand. Or ignore them. Marcus laughed, but it was a sad sound. I can't ignore my board of directors. Why not? What's the worst that could happen? They fire you? Yes, actually. That's exactly what could happen. Maya leaned forward, her eyes intense. Then let them fire you. At least you'll still have your integrity. The conversation was interrupted by Maya's phone buzzing. She looked at it and frowned. I have to go, she said. My mom has a doctor's appointment and I need to drive her. How is she doing? Marcus asked. Your mother? Better. The treatment is working. But it's expensive. Really expensive. We're managing, but just barely. She stood up to leave, then paused. Look, Mr. Sterling, I don't know if anything I said helps. I'm just a waitress who dropped out of college. What do I know about running a billion-dollar company? You know the most important thing, Marcus said. You know why things matter, Maya smiled slightly. It was the first real smile he had seen from her. My shift starts at 6 tomorrow morning. If you want to talk more, you know where to find me. After she left, Marcus sat alone in the booth for a long time. The dinner crowd started arriving. The diner got noisy. But he barely noticed an idea was forming in his mind. A crazy idea. An idea so strange that his lawyers would absolutely forbid it. But the more he thought about it, the more sense it made. What if Maya came to work at Sterling Tech? Not as a regular employee, not as an executive, but as an observer, someone who could see the company with fresh eyes, someone who could tell him the truth about what was really happening. She would say no, of course. Why would a waitress want to get involved with a failing tech company? But Marcus had learned one thing about Maya in their short conversations. She was not motivated by the same things most people were. She did not want fame or power. She wanted something simpler and more valuable. She wanted to help her mother. She wanted to make a difference, and Marcus could offer her both. He pulled out his phone and started typing an email to his assistant. He would need to prepare for this carefully. Maya was smart. She would see through any attempt to manipulate her. He would have to be completely honest about what he was offering and why. For the first time in months, Marcus felt something close to excitement. Not the fake excitement of closing a big deal or seeing the stock price rise, but real excitement. Maya arrived at the diner at 5:45 the next morning, 15 minutes before her shift started. She liked having those quiet moments before the breakfast rush, when she could drink coffee and prepare herself for another long day. But when she walked in, Marcus Sterling was already there, sitting in his usual booth. He looked like he had not slept. His expensive suit was wrinkled and there were dark circles under his eyes. You're here early, Maya said, surprised. I've been here since 5, Marcus admitted. I didn't want to miss you. Maya poured herself a cup of coffee and sat down across from him. This must be important. It is. I have a proposition for you. Maya's eyes narrowed. What kind of proposition? Marcus took a deep breath. I want to hire you. Not as a waitress, as a consultant. But not a regular consultant. Something different. Go on. I want you to come work at Sterling Tech for 2 weeks. Undercover, anonymous. Nobody will know who you are or why you're there. You'll just be another temporary worker. Maybe an intern. Maybe someone from the temp agency. Whatever makes sense. Why would I do that? Maya asked. Because I need to see my company through the eyes of someone who tells the truth. Everyone who works there now is afraid to be honest. They tell me what I want to hear, not what I need to know. But you're not afraid. You don't care about impressing me or keeping your job. You'll see things that I can't see. Maya sipped her coffee slowly. And what do I get out of this? Marcus pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. Maya opened it and saw a check. Her eyes widened when she read the amount. $50,000, Marcus said. That's what I'll pay you for 2 weeks of work. Whether you tell me anything useful or not. No strings attached. If you spend 2 weeks at my company and decide you have nothing to say, the money is still yours." Maya stared at the check. $50,000. That was more than she made in 6 months at the diner. That was enough to pay off most of her mother's medical bills. That was enough to change everything, but she was also suspicious. "Why so much?" "Because your time is valuable. Because you'll have to take time off from your real job. And because I'm desperate. My company is dying, Maya. I need help, real help. Not the kind I can buy from expensive consultants who don't care if I succeed or fail." Maya looked at him carefully. She had learned to read people pretty well over the years. She could usually tell when someone was lying or trying to manipulate her. But Marcus seemed genuine. Desperate, yes, but genuine. "What if your people find out who I am?" she asked. "What if they figure out you sent me?" "They won't, I'll make sure of that. As far as anyone knows, you're just a temp worker. Nobody pays attention to temp workers." Maya thought about it. 2 weeks. She could probably convince her boss at the diner to give her 2 weeks off. She had vacation time saved up, and $50,000 would solve so many problems. Her mother needed more treatment. The bills kept coming. They were drowning in debt, but there was something else. Something Maya did not want to admit, even to herself. She was curious. Curious about what a $40 billion company looked like from the inside. Curious about whether she could actually help. Curious about whether the things she had learned from working 3 jobs could make a difference in the corporate world. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll do it. But I have conditions." "Name them." "First, I keep working here 2 days a week." "I'm not giving up my job completely." "Fine. Second, if I see something dangerous or illegal, I'm reporting it. I don't care if it hurts your company. I would expect nothing less. Third, you have to promise that you'll actually listen to what I tell you. I'm not doing this just so you can ignore me and say you tried." Marcus met her eyes. "I promise." They shook hands. The deal was made. 3 days later, Maya walked into Sterling Tech headquarters for the first time. The building was enormous, all glass and steel, rising 30 stories into the sky. The lobby was filled with expensive art and modern furniture. Everything screamed wealth and success. Maya checked in at the front desk using her fake name. Maya Rodriguez had become Maria Rogers, temporary administrative assistant. The security guard barely looked at her. He just handed her a visitor badge and pointed toward the elevators. 15th floor, he said. "Someone will meet you there." The elevator was made of glass, and as it rose, Maya could see the entire city spreading out below her. She had never been this high up before. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. On the 15th floor, a harried woman in her 30s met her. "You're the new temp? Great, we need all the help we can get. Follow me." The woman, whose name was Jennifer, led Maya through a maze of cubicles and offices. Everyone looked busy. Everyone looked stressed. Nobody smiled. "This is your desk," Jennifer said, pointing to a small cubicle in a corner. "Basically, you'll be helping with data entry, filing, making copies, whatever we need. The work is boring, but it's easy. Any questions?" "Not right now," Maya said. "Good. Someone will bring you paperwork to file in about an hour." Jennifer walked away, already talking on her phone about some crisis or deadline. Maya sat down at her desk and looked around. From here, she could see about 20 other cubicles. She could hear people talking on phones, typing on keyboards, having whispered conversations, and she could feel the tension. It was like electricity in the air. Everyone was afraid of something. Over the next few days, Maya learned to be invisible. That was her special skill, developed from years of serving people who never really saw her. She filed papers, made copies, delivered documents, and while she did these simple tasks, she watched and listened. She watched how managers talked to their teams. She listened to conversations in the break room. She paid attention to who was friends with who avoided who seemed happy and who seemed miserable. What she saw troubled her deeply. In the break room on her 3rd day, Maya overheard 2 engineers talking. They thought they were alone. "Did you tell Thompson about the bug?" one asked. "Are you crazy? If I tell Thompson there's a bug, he'll freak out. The product launches next week. There's no time to fix it now. But it's a major bug. It could cause serious problems, I know. But Thompson will blame me for not finding it sooner. Better to just stay quiet and hope nobody notices." Maya pretended to focus on the coffee machine, but she was recording every word in her memory. She saw employees working 12 and 14-hour days, not because they loved their work, but because they were afraid of being fired. She saw managers canceling team meetings because they did not want to hear bad news. She saw reports being rewritten to make failures look like successes. The company was built on fear and lies. On the 5th day, Maya met Tom. He was an older man, maybe 60, who worked in a small office near her cubicle. Unlike everyone else, Tom did not seem stressed. He seemed sad. "You're new," Tom said one afternoon when Maya was filing papers near his office. "Started this week," Maya confirmed. "Temp worker?" "Yes," Tom nodded slowly. "Want some advice? Get out while you can. This place will eat you alive." Maya sat down in the chair across from his desk. "Why do you say that?" Tom leaned back and looked at the ceiling. "I've been here 23 years. Started when the company was just Marcus and 12 other people in a rented office. Back then, this place was magic. We were solving real problems. Helping real people. Everyone cared about the work, not just the paycheck. What changed? Everything. The company got bigger. The investors got louder. The lawyers got more powerful. And slowly, bit by bit, we stopped being a company that made things people needed and became a company that made things investors wanted." "Do you still like working here?" Maya asked. Tom smiled sadly. "I love what this company used to be. But what it is now? No, I stay because I'm too old to start over somewhere else, and because I keep hoping that maybe somehow it will become great again." That conversation stayed with Maya. Tom represented something important. He was the living memory of what Sterling Tech used to be, and he was proof that the company had lost its way. By the end of the first week, Maya had seen enough. She had pages of notes, stories, examples, evidence of a company that was rotting from the inside out, but she kept going. She wanted to see more, wanted to understand the full picture before she reported back to Marcus. On day 8, something happened that changed everything. Maya was asked to deliver some documents to the 20th floor, where the executive offices were located. She had never been up there before. The 20th floor was completely different from the 15th. Here everything was luxury. Thick carpets, wooden furniture, original artwork on the walls. It felt more like a fancy hotel than an office. Maya dropped off the documents at the executive assistant's desk and was about to leave when she heard voices coming from a nearby conference room. The door was slightly open. She recognized one of the voices. It was John Thompson, the chief technology officer. Marcus had mentioned him several times as one of his most trusted advisors. Maya knew she should not listen. But something made her stop. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was curiosity. Either way, she stayed near the door and heard every word. "The numbers for the new product are terrible," Thompson was saying. "Customer satisfaction is at 30%. 30%! That's worse than our worst product ever. Does Marcus know?" Another voice asked. "Of course not. And we're not going to tell him." Maya stood outside Sterling Tech headquarters at 5:45 in the morning. The building looked different in the early dawn light. Less imposing. More vulnerable somehow. She took a deep breath and walked inside. The night security guard recognized her now from her 2 weeks as a temp worker. He waved her through without questions. Marcus's office was on the 30th floor. The top floor. Maya had never been up here before. When the elevator doors opened, she stepped into a space that looked more like a luxury apartment than an office. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city waking up below. The furniture was modern and expensive, but what caught Maya's attention was the wall covered in photographs. Old photographs? Marcus, when he was younger, surrounded by a small team in a cramped office. Everyone was smiling. Everyone looked happy and full of hope. "That was the first year," Marcus said, walking in from an inner room. He held 2 cups of coffee. "We had no money, no investors, just an idea, and a lot of naive optimism." He handed Maya one of the cups and gestured to a comfortable chair near the windows. They both sat down. "So," Marcus said quietly, "tell me, how bad is it?" Maya opened her notebook. She had spent most of the night organizing her thoughts, writing down everything she had seen and heard. But now, looking at Marcus's tired face, she felt a wave of sympathy. This was going to hurt him badly. "It's very bad," she said. "Worse than I think you know." "Worse than I expected?" "Give it to me straight. Don't hold back." So Maya told him everything. She told him about the engineers too afraid to report bugs, about the managers who rewrote reports to hide problems, about the employees working themselves to exhaustion out of fear rather than passion, about the culture of lies and intimidation that had infected every level of the company. Marcus listened without interrupting. His face grew paler with each revelation, but he did not try to defend or excuse anything. He just listened. Then Maya told him about the conversation she had overheard, about Thompson and the other executives deliberately hiding the truth about the new product launch. When she finished that part, Marcus stood up and walked to the window. He stood there for a long time, not speaking, just staring out at the city. "John Thompson has been with me for 15 years, he finally said. "I trusted him completely. I thought he cared about this company as much as I did." "Maybe he did once," Maya said gently. "But somewhere along the way he started caring more about protecting himself than protecting the company." Marcus turned back to face her. "What else?" "I met someone named Tom. He's been here 23 years. He told me about the early days, about what this company used to be." "Tom Wilson," Marcus said, and there was warmth in his voice now. "He was employee number 4, one of the best engineers I've ever known. He's still one of the best engineers you have, but nobody listens to him anymore. They've pushed him into a corner and forgotten about him, just like they've forgotten what this company was supposed to be about." Maya opened her notebook and read some quotes she had written down, things she had heard employees say when they thought nobody important was listening. "I used to love working here. Now I just survive. We're not building products anymore. We're building quarterly reports. I wanted to suggest a better way to do things, but my manager told me to shut up and follow the process." Each quote was like a knife. Marcus closed his eyes as if the words physically hurt him. "You asked me 2 weeks ago how to save a $40 billion company," Maya said. "But that was the wrong question. The real question is, do you want a $40 billion company or do you want a company worth building?" Marcus opened his eyes. "What's the difference? A $40 billion company is just a number, just a stock price. It doesn't mean anything real. But a company worth building, that's something different. That's a place where people want to work, where the products actually help people, where everyone from the CEO to the cleaning staff believes in what they're doing. And you think Sterling Tech can become that again? I think it has to. Because right now you're heading for disaster. Your new product is going to fail. Not might fail, will fail. And when it does, all those lies and cover-ups are going to come out. The stock will crash even harder. Good people will leave. And you'll be left with nothing but a shell of a company that nobody believes in anymore." Marcus sat down heavily in his chair. "So what do I do?" Maya took a deep breath. What she was about to suggest was radical, crazy. His board of directors would hate it. His lawyers would forbid it. His advisors would call it corporate suicide, but it was also the only way forward that made any sense. "You stop lying," she said simply, "to everyone. Starting right now." "What do you mean?" "I mean you cancel the product launch. You admit it's not ready. You tell investors the truth about what's happening inside the company. You fire the people who have been lying to you no matter how important they are, and you start rebuilding from the ground up with honesty as the foundation." Marcus laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "That would destroy the stock price. The board would fire me. Investors would sue. I'd lose everything. Maybe people would respect you for telling the truth. Maybe employees would start believing in the company again. Maybe customers would trust you more, not less. Either way, you'd still have your integrity, and that's worth more than any stock price." "You really believe that?" "I know that. I've spent 3 years watching rich people sacrifice their integrity for money. And you know what? None of them seem happy. They have everything, but they have nothing that matters." Marcus was quiet for a long time. Maya let him think. This was his decision. She had given him the information. Now he had to choose what to do with it. Finally, Marcus spoke. "I have a board meeting tomorrow. They're expecting me to announce the new product launch and some layoffs to make the numbers look better. What if I did the opposite? What if I announced the truth?" "They would probably try to fire you. And if they do," Maya smiled, "then you'll be free to start over. Maybe build something new, something better, without all the baggage." Marcus looked at the photographs on the wall, the young version of himself full of dreams and hope. "I don't want to start over. I want to save what I built, but save the real version, the version that mattered. Then that's what you have to fight for. Not the stock price, not the board's approval, but the soul of the company." Marcus pulled out his phone and started typing. "I'm calling an emergency meeting. All executives. This afternoon. You should be there." "Me? I'm just a temp worker. Nobody knows who I really am." Then it's time they found out. You're the one who uncovered the truth. You should be there when I confront them with it. Maya felt a flutter of nervousness. Your executives are not going to be happy to see me. Good. They've been too comfortable for too long. The meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock in the main conference room. Maya spent the morning preparing. She organized her notes, rehearsed what she would say, tried to calm her racing heart. At 1:45, she met Marcus outside the conference room. He looked different, stronger somehow, like he had made a decision and was at peace with it. Ready? He asked. No, but let's do it anyway. They walked into the conference room together. 8 executives were already seated around a long table. Thompson was there, looking confident and relaxed. The CFO was there, the head of marketing, the head of operations. All of them looked surprised to see Maya. Who's this? Thompson asked, frowning. This is Maya Rodriguez, Marcus said. For the past 2 weeks, she's been working here undercover, observing, listening, learning the truth about what's really happening in this company. The room exploded with angry voices. Thompson jumped to his feet. You did what? You sent a spy into the company? That's outrageous. Sit down, John, Marcus said, and his voice was hard. You're going to want to hear this. For the next 30 minutes, Maya presented her findings. She shared the quotes from employees, the stories of fear and lies, the evidence of problems being hidden, and finally the conversation she had overheard about the product launch. Thompson's face went from red to white. That conversation was private. You had no right to listen. You had no right to lie to Marcus about the product, Maya shot back. You're deliberately launching something you know will fail, just to manipulate the stock price. I was protecting the company. No, you were protecting yourself. The room dissolved into chaos. Executives yelling at each other. Accusations flying back and forth. Blame being shifted and deflected. Marcus let it go on for exactly 2 minutes. Then he stood up and slammed his hand on the table. The room went silent. Enough, he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried absolute authority. I've heard everything I need to hear. John, you're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Thompson's mouth fell open. You can't fire me. The board won't allow it. The board doesn't run this company, I do. And I'm done with people who lie to me. Marcus looked around the table at the other executives. Anyone else here who's been hiding problems or lying to protect themselves? This is your chance to come clean. Right now. Because if I find out later, you'll be gone too. The silence was deafening. Then slowly the head of marketing raised his hand. The customer satisfaction numbers, he admitted quietly. I've been adjusting them, making them look better than they are. 3 months later, Marcus sat in the same corner booth at Ruby's diner where everything had started. Maya was working her shift, moving between tables with the same efficient grace he had first noticed all those weeks ago. The morning news played on the small television above the counter. A financial reporter was talking about Sterling Tech, and Marcus could not help but smile at what he heard. Sterling Tech stock has reached an all-time high today, surging 35% from its low point 3 months ago. Industry analysts are calling CEO Marcus Sterling's radical transparency approach a masterstroke of leadership. Maya poured Marcus his coffee and sat down across from him. Her shift was almost over and the breakfast crowd had thinned out. You're famous again, she said, nodding at the television, but this time for good reasons. It's strange, Marcus admitted. 3 months ago, everyone thought I was crazy. Now they're calling me a genius, but I'm the same person doing the same things. That's how the world works. People hate change until it succeeds. Then they pretend they supported it all along. The past 3 months had been the hardest of Marcus's life, but also the most rewarding. The board meeting the day after the executive confrontation had been brutal. 5 board members had demanded his resignation. They called his decision to cancel the product launch corporate suicide. They said his honesty would destroy shareholder value, but Marcus had stood firm. And 3 board members had supported him, barely enough to keep his job. The next day, he had held the company-wide meeting. Over 2,000 employees had gathered in the main auditorium and overflow rooms. Marcus had stood on stage and told them everything. About the culture of fear and lies. About the executives who had been hiding problems. About how he had lost sight of the company's original purpose. And then he had apologized. Not a corporate apology full of legal language and empty phrases. A real apology. He told them he had failed as a leader. That he had allowed good people to suffer while rewarding those who played political games. That he had focused so much on stock prices that he forgot about the people who actually built the products. The room had been completely silent. 2,000 people holding their breath waiting to see what would happen next. Then Marcus had announced the changes. The canceled product launch, the fired executives, the new cultural architect position that Maya would fill, and most importantly, the new company policy: truth over politics, people over profits, long-term value over short-term gains. I don't know if this will work, Marcus had told them honestly. The stock might crash. We might lose investors. Some of you might decide to leave for more stable companies, and I understand if you do. But I'm asking those who believe in what this company used to stand for to stay and help me rebuild it. Not into a bigger company, but into a better company. The applause had started slowly, a few people clapping, then more than everyone, a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. Of course, not everyone had stayed. About 15% of the employees had left within the first month. But most of those were the ones who thrived in the old culture of politics and fear. The ones who stayed were the people who actually cared about the work. And slowly things began to change. Maya had thrown herself into her new role with fierce dedication. She spent 3 days a week at Sterling Tech, talking to employees at every level, asking questions, listening to problems, breaking down the walls between management and workers. She discovered things that shocked Marcus. Brilliant ideas that had been ignored, serious problems that had been hidden for years, employees with incredible talent who had been overlooked because they did not play political games. Tom Wilson, the old engineer that Maya had met during her undercover work, was brought out of his forgotten corner and put in charge of a new innovation team. Within 6 weeks, his team had designed 3 products that employees were genuinely excited about. The customer service department was completely restructured. Instead of following scripts and meeting call time targets, representatives were given real authority to solve problems. Customer satisfaction scores jumped from 30% to 78% in 2 months. The new product that had been canceled was completely rebuilt. This time, engineers were allowed to take the time to do it right. When it finally launched 2.5 months later, it was not just good. It was exceptional. Reviews were incredible. Sales exceeded all expectations. But the biggest change was cultural. Employees started speaking up, sharing ideas, admitting mistakes instead of hiding them. The fear that had infected every level of the company slowly began to disappear, replaced by something Marcus had not seen in years: genuine enthusiasm. Investors had panicked at first, exactly as predicted. The stock had dropped another 15% after Marcus's announcements. Financial news programs had called him reckless. Some had even suggested he had lost his mind. But then the quarterly earnings report came out. And despite the canceled product, despite the departing executives, despite all the chaos, the company's actual performance had improved. Efficiency was up. Waste was down. Employee productivity had increased dramatically. And most importantly, customers were responding. They could feel the difference. Products were better. Service was better. The company felt authentic again. The stock had started climbing. Slowly at first, then faster. Investors who had bet against Sterling Tech had lost billions. Those who had stayed loyal were being rewarded. The board apologized to me last week, Marcus told Maya, bringing his attention back to the present moment in the diner.
Can you believe that?
5 of them actually said they were sorry for doubting me. People respect courage, and Maya said, even when they're scared of it at first. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Yes, you could have. You just needed someone to remind you of who you used to be. Marcus pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. What's this? Open it. Maya opened the envelope and found a stock certificate. Her eyes widened. This is worth $2 million at current prices. Maybe more if the stock keeps rising. It's your equity in the company. You earned it. Maya stared at the certificate. $2 million. An amount of money she could never have imagined having. Enough to secure her mother's medical care forever. Enough to pay for her to finish college if she wanted. Enough to change her entire life. I can't accept this, she said quietly. Why not? Because I didn't do it for money. I did it because it was right, I know. That's exactly why you deserve it. The people who chase money never deserve it. But the people who chase purpose? They deserve to be rewarded. Maya looked at the certificate for a long time. Then she carefully folded it and put it in her pocket. Thank you. This means my mom will be taken care of. That's all I ever wanted. She's doing well? The treatment is working. The doctors say she'll make a full recovery. I'm glad. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, drinking coffee and watching the morning sun stream through the diner windows. Outside, the small town was waking up. People walking to work. Cars driving past. Life continuing in its ordinary, beautiful way. Can I ask you something? Marcus said. Why do you still work here? You don't need to anymore. You could focus entirely on Sterling Tech, or go back to college, or travel the world. Why keep waitressing? Maya smiled. Because this place keeps me honest. At Sterling Tech, people treat me like I'm important. They listen to what I say. They value my opinions, but here, I'm just Maya the waitress. People ignore me. They're rude to me sometimes. They leave terrible tips, and that sounds awful. It's necessary. Because the moment I forget what it's like to be invisible, the moment I start believing I'm special, I'll lose the perspective that made me valuable in the first place. Marcus nodded slowly. You're wiser than most people twice your age. I just learned from experience. The hard way. Maya's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and stood up. I have to go. Sterling Tech meeting in an hour. Same time tomorrow? Marcus asked. Same time tomorrow. After Maya left, Marcus sat alone in the booth for a while longer. He thought about how much had changed in 3 months. How one honest conversation in a small diner had led to a complete transformation of his company and his life. He thought about the employees who were thriving now. People like Tom Wilson, who had been given a second chance to do meaningful work. Young engineers who were no longer afraid to share their ideas. Managers who had learned to lead with honesty instead of fear. He thought about the customers who were sending thank you emails. People whose problems were actually being solved. Users who felt like the company actually cared about them again. And he thought about himself. 3 months ago, he had been a billionaire who had everything and nothing. Now he had less money, more problems, and more stress than ever before. But he also had something he thought he had lost forever. Purpose. His phone rang. It was his assistant. Mr. Sterling, the Wall Street Journal wants an interview. They're calling your turnaround the most remarkable corporate transformation in recent history. Tell them yes, Marcus said, but only if they agree to interview Maya too. This was her achievement as much as mine. Yes, sir. Marcus hung up and smiled. The old version of himself would have taken all the credit. Would have positioned himself as the genius who single-handedly saved his company.